What's up everybody, I'm Matt.
And I'm Beth.
And today we're going to be reviewing the interior in the 2021 Volvo XC40 Recharge. So the Recharge is the fully electric version of the XC40, but we've actually never reviewed an interior in an XC40 in general, so this will kind of apply to that as well as to the electric version, which has a few unique touches here, but it's pretty standard XC40. That's really the whole summary of the Recharge version, is even though it's electric, it's one of the electric vehicles that doesn't really feel like it's, you know, a specially made electric vehicle. It's just an XC40 that just happens to be electric, and it's a very normal experience in a lot of ways.
Which is really nice. So many of these electric cars are made to look futuristic and crazy and all of that stuff, and I think that it's really nice that this can like blend in with the rest of your normal cars, so no one's like, ooh, look at that crazy car or anything. I don't know. It's just, it's nice that it's able to be very similar to the other stylings of the cars.
Yeah, it's great for people that don't need to stand out and they don't need the attention of, ooh, look, they have a fancy electric car, but you still are, you know, having the electric thing. As far as the interior, it's also pretty typical Volvo in most ways. Now, there are some new things they have here in these, which they're rolling out to all Volvos here in 2022, but it kind of first appeared here on this, and I think it's a really nice design in here. Now, this one as tested, though, is almost $60,000, so it is on the high side because it's electric, but you can get, of course, a lower version of an XC40 that's not electric, that's in the 40s, and then, you know, you have an interior that I think makes a lot more sense. But even at, you know, the high $50,000 range, I still think this interior feels pretty luxurious, even if it's not quite as luxurious as an equal Mercedes or Audi or BMW might feel for that. One thing is it's pretty nice and roomy in here for being a small little, you know, subcompact or compact crossover. It has a good amount of space.
Yeah, and I think that it's very comfortable here and there. If you have a rear-facing car seat, though, you might not be able to fit in the front. I was very, very tight up in the front here, but I mean, that's one thing that's not going to last very long if you are having a kid. And
that's just kind of the nature of these really smaller, you know, SUVs. Is if you want more space, you got to go up to a bigger vehicle. All XC40 Recharges only come with these black leather seats with the Alcantara centers, and it's non-perforated Alcantara as well. But so I'm not a huge fan of Alcantara, especially when it's not perforated, because it gets really hot in the summer if the car is sitting outside and you're getting sweaty. But the good thing is, you know, since this is the electric version, you can do the pre-cooling, so you can set it up so that it will cool itself off ahead of time before you get into the vehicle, and so that kind of negates that a little bit. But unfortunately, you can't get ventilated seats here in these either, only heated seats. But just soft, comfortable seats though, and, you know, have the usual adjustments here, and also have a little manual adjustable thigh support here. And so nice to have all that too.
Yeah, and you do have all of those things with the passenger seat. Also, everything is power, so it is really nice to be able to have the same thing as your driver. But also one interesting thing is that every XC40 Recharge has the same interior. So that's one thing that I'm not super crazy about, because you can't really customize it in any way. You can't choose lighter seats or seats without this Alcantara. So that's one thing that's not really very great from a buyer standpoint.
Yeah, and even like the trim here on the doors and stuff, like, it's cool, but, you know, if you're someone who prefers like a wood look or an aluminum look or something that's just not this like high-tech polka dot kind of thing, you know, it just kind of strange. There is like zero customization with these, aside from, and that also goes as far as trims. There's only this one trim. There's two different little option packages. That's it as far as your customization, basically. So this one has both those option packages. They're called the Climate Package and the Advanced Package. But yeah, so I mean, I agree. Like, from a, you know, buyer's standpoint, you know, it's just not very exciting. Yeah, there's still soft, comfortable seats though, so that's great. The steering wheel here in the XC40 Recharge is also a really nice steering wheel. I love that you have this nice thick metal here on the bottom and around the edges of it here, and just a great 9-3 grip, nice 10-2 notches, just a few buttons on the wheel here, but honestly I think there are too few buttons on the wheel. A lot of the times I complain about having too many buttons on a steering wheel. This, I think it's too few, and this is one little gripe I have with Volvos, is that they do have a steeper learning curve than basically any other vehicle on the market, where they do everything differently. Nothing is very easy to figure out. This is like the one car where I actually had to dig into the owner's manual to figure out how to do some stuff, because it's not readily apparent how to work some stuff. And so it doesn't help. You only have a few buttons on the steering wheel that have ambiguous symbols that you have no clue what they do. So, you know, you definitely, if you're not used to Volvos, especially in the past few years here, it's going to be a little while to learn everything. But, you know, it does get better once you learn it. But just one thing to mention there. Moving on to the gauges here in the XC40, that's another interesting thing here. So on the Recharge here, you get this new digital gauge cluster. So all Recharges and then all 2022 Volvos are switching to this Android-based infotainment system. And so the gauges are tied into that. So you have Google Maps here on the gauge cluster, and it's really cool. You know, it doesn't show you any kind of satellite imagery or anything like you get on like Audis, for example, but it is just really nice to have a, you know, nice large map there right in front of you. But it's kind of interesting how other things that it's showing on the gauge cluster are a little sparse. So you just have a basic little speed readout there on the left, and even like, for example, the Recharge and the Regen you get here with an electric Volvo, it's just this little bar on the right side. There's not really anything showing you or explaining to you like what's happening, what's going on. All the nerdy stuff that you might enjoy in other electric vehicles, you don't get any of that here in this. This is, again, a very normal car experience. There isn't a lot of electric stuff to geek out on. If you're someone who's into electric vehicles, there's very little electric touches. So for example, even like instead of having a fuel gauge, of course, you have a battery power gauge. But in every other electric vehicle, it tells you how much range you have on that battery. And it'll change that range estimate based on, you know, whether it's cold out or how your driving style is. This, you just have a percentage, like your phone, where it just tells you a percentage and that's it. So you have to physically do the math yourself if you're doing a road trip of like, okay, I know this car is rated at 208 miles of range in a best case scenario, and I have 78% left. How many miles is that? And you got to do the math and figure it out for yourself. Now, if you do run the nav, it will give you estimates as far as how much range you'll have, and you know, if you need to stop for a charge, it will figure all that out in the navigation system. But it just would be nice to know, okay, I have X amount of charge, I can go X amount as far as miles go. And with this, for some reason, they just don't display it. Unless you're beneath 30 miles of range, then it'll give you a little warning of here's how many miles you have left. But that's really for whenever you're doing a nail biter of a drive, you know, trying to eke out those last few miles. So kind of a strange thing there, but very little customization. There's no way to show your audio in there or to show anything else, honestly. Even your trip computer, you can't really show unless you hit this little button for a little pop-up, and then that'll show you just temporarily, you know, your trip information, and then that's it, and then it goes away. So I just wish there was a little more information in these gauges. It's just this huge, beautiful display, and aside from showing you the maps, it's kind of wasted. There's a ton of wasted space where they could be showing you more. Moving on to the infotainment system here. Now, it's the same size as any other Volvo screen, so it's a 9-inch vertical screen here, but it's running the new Android-based infotainment. There's some things that are really brilliant about this system and some things that are glaring omissions currently. So first off, you have like the maps, for example, which is fantastic because it's just Google Maps. So you literally just punch in stuff like as if you're, you know, typing on your computer for Google Maps, and it pulls up stuff. It'll give you the range estimates and all that, and it's very straightforward. It'll tell you, you know, how much battery you'll have left when you get there. It's really great at finding charging stations, and since it's connected to the internet, it'll tell you how many spots are open at those charging stations and things like that. So it's really great. And honestly, I think this is the best part about this, because this is one of the best navigation systems because it's just Google Maps. And instead of, you know, like every other car company trying to do their own thing and reinvent the wheel, this is just like, you know what, Google Maps is really good. Let's just put it in the car. I love that. It's really brilliant that they kind of just surrendered to Google Maps in that way. But then other things aren't great. So for example, as of right now, by the way, you cannot get Apple CarPlay or Android Auto at all. And then you also don't have Sirius satellite radio. They claim that both of those things will be coming down the road as an over-the-air update. But as of the filming here, late August in 2021, still none of that. Just keep in mind, if you buy one of these, at least here in 2021, you might be waiting for that functionality. And having CarPlay is really nice, and it's expected, especially when you're spending almost $60,000. So to not have that is a glaring omission right now. I know they'll add it hopefully eventually. Also, even like doing Bluetooth audio streaming, it doesn't even show you like album art. It just shows you like a giant blank clip art picture, as well as just the you know, song title, and it just looks cheap and like unfinished. Like any other, even the Kia that I have, I also have a Kia press car this week. That, when I do Bluetooth audio streaming, shows me the album art and all kinds of cool graphics and stuff. This is like so plain and underwhelming with that. And so again, I just feel like they definitely need to polish this system up some more.
Yeah, it's also ever so slightly tilted towards the driver, which I guess is good since there's not very many shortcut buttons on the wheel, but it's not terrible to use, and it's not terrible for me to reach because this is a smaller SUV, so it's not that big of a deal. But it's just that functionality. You don't have a lot of things that you can do on this thing, so you know, there you go.
Yeah, and also, like, for example, you don't have any electric car mode or anything to kind of, again, nerd out on the numbers if you want, you know, as far as your consumption and stuff. It just shows you that in the dashboard there, but you don't have any of that. Basically every other electric vehicle has like a whole electric vehicle screen. This will at least let you program charging times and then also pre-cooling the vehicle, but that's it. And also all your climate controls are through the screen here, but that's all very straightforward and simple, easy to use. So no complaints there with that. That's also how you turn on your heated seats, heated steering wheel, all that stuff is just, you know, 2 taps away. So very simple for that. This one also has the 360 camera as part of the advanced package, and that'll give you a bird's eye view, which is a very cool touch. So yes, I think this system has huge potential. If they add everything that everyone's expecting and they improve the look of Bluetooth audio streaming and stuff, I think it's great. You can also, by the way, since this is an Android-based system, it has the Google Play Store, so you can just go into the Play Store and download apps that yourself you want to use. So for example, since you don't have satellite radio, you can download like the iHeartRadio app and have that running as a streaming radio service on here. I think Spotify and a few others you can also download as apps and run those in here, much like you do on your smartphone. You know, but it's still just, you don't have that actual smartphone integration, unfortunately, which is a little bit of a bummer. But it nicely cleans up this area though, because I mean, you just have these huge metal air vents, which are cool. Also, you have metal door handles. I mean, so there's some nice large chunks of metal that definitely feel very expensive in here. And then coming down, like, you have your volume knob, which is this knurled metal finish, which is really nice. Just a few little buttons there, and you know, so all those types of materials just feel very expensive for sure.
They do feel expensive, but then again, you can look at the rest of your interior here and it is so much plastic. I mean, you're spending 60 grand. Obviously, electric cars are more expensive. However, I just feel like you could spend this amount of money on a different electric car and get way nicer features.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, like, even like we reviewed the Mustang Mach-E, and that I think has more soft touch material than this does. Like, there was, I think, a little more padding. And
yeah, I think it was literally an insane car, the Mach-E, compared to this. I mean, the seats were so comfortable. These seats are comfortable, but once again, you only get one option, and you're SOL if, you know, you don't want this.
Yeah, versus at least the Mach-E, you get the choice of white or black seats.
Yeah, I mean,
you have that at least, you know, one other choice. It's not the worst, but it's definitely not the most luxurious feeling vehicle for the money, that's for sure. But one thing that is pretty good actually for an electric vehicle is the storage space here in the XC40 Recharge. So you have these massive pockets in the doors that have this huge bottle holder. I mean, the whole door is like wide open in the bottom there. It's really great. In the middle here, you have this little slot right in the transmission tunnel area, which is not too useful, but you know, maybe you can throw like chapstick or something in there. And then you have this huge middle bin, which in the advanced package here gives you a wireless charging pad. You don't get that if you don't do the advanced trim. Otherwise, it's just this huge bin. It's nicely rubberized though. You'll also see that there's 2 USB-C jacks and a regular power outlet in there. There are no regular USB jacks in this vehicle, only USB-C, so keep that in mind. And then you also have, strangely, this little pop-out like ashtray, basically is what that's shaped as. It just pops out there, and it's just kind of an interesting inclusion. But anyway, then you also have 2 cup holders here next to the shifter, which is really nice the way this shifter is like leather wrapped. And then you have also this extra little bonus bin, which has this little like spring-loaded door, but that's actually a pretty large extra bin as well, which you don't expect, but it's nice. And if you don't like having that little door to block it off, you can actually just pop out this whole thing and then just have an open bin there as well, which is cool too. But anyway, you also have this armrest, which is padded, but it's definitely very firm leather.
Yeah, it's not very exciting.
It's not as plush as a lot of other stuff. But anyway, you open that up and you'll see a good size bin in there, rubberized and all that. But honestly though, compared with average Volvos, a lot of Volvos don't have very much storage space up front. This is a massive improvement. You have tons of space compared to most of the Volvos. One other thing though that I think the Volvo has over a lot of the other electric vehicles that this competes with is you have this panoramic moonroof, but it has an actual sunshade. And that is huge because the Tesla Model Y does not, the Mustang Mach-E does not, the Volkswagen ID4 does, but that's basically the only other one that actually does this. And everyone else that buys a Tesla or a Mach-E has to buy some aftermarket goofy thing to, you know, suction cup onto the roof or clip into the roof. And I mean, those work, but to have an actual power thing you can open and close very easily is really nice. Because I mean, not everyone wants, especially if you live in like a very hot climate where your car is sitting out and getting baked all day, you don't want to have that wide open. And it's amazing that they don't offer any kind of sunshade on so many of these electric vehicles with these huge glass roofs. And so I think that's a huge selling perk there. If you're someone who's really annoyed by that lack in other electric vehicles, here you go. The Volvo has it. Moving on to the back seat here in the XC40 Recharge. It's actually more spacious than you might be expecting. So I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself. I easily have several inches of legroom to spare. This is one of the few vehicles in this segment that actually feels like it has a good amount of space in the back there. And I don't know how they managed to pull that off, but it's actually a very spacious back seat. And I mean, they're comfortable back seats, and here with the climate pack, they're also heated for those rear seats as well. You'll also see they have their own dedicated air vents when you look forward, as well as having 2 more USB-C jacks back there as well.
And I sat back there a lot with our baby in the week that we have had this car, and it was really comfortable, way more comfortable than I was expecting. Some of the other cars in the segment aren't that comfortable in the back, so I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, although one interesting thing about the rear doors is they really extend out very far, so whenever you're opening up the door, it actually, like, it's a bigger door than you might expect. And so if you're not paying attention, you could easily like smack yourself in the face because it like really extends up really far there. It's kind of funny.
It's that, and also it doesn't give you that much space, like leg space, to get out. So like I kind of had to like get around it. Yeah, so that's fun and fine for younger kids and stuff, but for me, a normal adult, it wasn't very exciting to be like hitting my leg every time I got out.
Yeah, so a little bit of a narrow opening there. There's also a good amount of storage space though. There's also pockets in those doors and a fold down center armrest, the 2 cup holders built into it, and so nice to have all that. And so yeah, overall, I mean, again, for the size of vehicle this is, I think it's a better than average back seat. So they did a good job with that. The trunk space in the XC40 Recharge is also really good, basically the same as any other XC40, which is also impressive that it is that versatile. So you'll see, you know, a good amount of length and width to that space. You'll see there's these 2 little pockets on the sides there, which are a decent depth for, you know, tossing a little grocery bag in or something. Also in the advanced package here, you do get a rear power outlet there, so you'll see that. And when you lift up the floor, you'll see there's a spare tire jack and stuff. I don't believe there's a spare tire. I wasn't able to actually take apart everything and see, but you have all that stuff there. So it's really nice that you have also beneath that floor there is where you'll see a little pocket where you can store the charger and the charging cable. If you want to take that with you, you have that capability. It's also a power open and close tailgate, which is great. And you have the bonus space of the frunk or the front trunk. Now it's not large, but when you pop the hood, you'll see that there's also an extra little lid you open, and then you'll have a space that's large enough for probably, I'd say, a medium-sized duffel bag. Nothing enormous. It's as far as frunks go, it's probably the smallest frunk there is out of all these other electric vehicles, but it's more than like some, like the Volkswagen ID4, which doesn't have a frunk at all, and you just don't have anything under the hood there. So it's a nice bonus space, even if it is only good for an extra duffel bag. You know, at least it's something, and so I appreciate that they put that in there. But again, if you go for a Mustang Mach-E or a Tesla Model Y, I mean, those have a huge frunk that you could fit probably 3 suitcases in or something, versus this, you know, being just a little tiny pocket, but better than nothing again. And so yeah, that's about it as far as the XC40 Recharge. The last little thing to mention, this has this Harman Kardon stereo, which is optional for $800. It sounds fantastic. I haven't heard the bass stereo in these to compare, but if you're someone who's into music, and especially since this vehicle is totally silent and there's really nothing to listen to, you're going to want to be having the music on probably 99% of the time. I think it's worth paying $800 extra to have a better stereo, so you can enjoy that along with the silence of the Recharge XC40. But yes, that's about all of our thoughts on the interior. Overall, it's pretty nice though. I think, again, you have to keep in mind this is electric, so you're going to be paying extra for that, you know, luxury of having the electric thing. And so You know, and compared to, you know, regular XC40s that are in the, you know, mid to low $40,000 range, I mean, I think this is a really nice interior, you know, if you're shopping for one of those regular XC40s as well. But yeah, that's all of our thoughts. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Be sure to watch the driving review as well if you want to hear how this vehicle drives, how the pricing compares to its competitors, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.
Take care.